Tappy Chat, Tappy Chat.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Tappy Chats. My name is Alex, and I run Tappy Toes Forest Hill, and I'm here to chat to you today about all things to do with raising kids, caring for kids, being a parent, being a carer, being in that zone. We're here for you today, and we're tackling the big one, the big mountain that I've just been informed we will never tackle in the podcast length that we have got here today. But we're gonna get to the tip of the iceberg. Today we're talking about sleep. We all need it. We all need more of it. It's particularly challenging through the first 20 years of raising kids. I don't know. It just never seems to end. There's always a sleep regression. It's ongoing. It's a conversation that continues with parents from day one. So I thought let's tackle it. Let's do it. It often comes up midway through a class when someone comes in with really strong coffee, just going, "Oh God." But there's help out there. There's a lot of help out there actually, which is why it's good to find the right help for you. And I am chatting to my guest today, Lucy. Lucy is a mum of two boys just like me, so we're in the zone with being boy mums. She also is an infant sleep consultant for Second Star to the Right. So she's going to bust some myths for us. She's going to talk us through sleep. She's going to, I don't know, calm you down, get you stressed. I don't know. I'm painting a picture here. Hi, Lucy. How are you?
Hello. I'm all right. I'm well. I will say I am at the end of the day of consulting with lots and lots of families. So all we can hope for today is that I still make sense. So I apologise in advance, but no, really, thank you so much for having me. And exactly as you say, it's a humongous topic.
It's
You know, and I think it's because apart from anything else, I think for a long time, a lot of the sleep information out there was very generic, and people did feel like they could speak about it in sort of like in a short period of time, because like, oh, well, if they're this age, they need this, and it will equal this. But now everyone is really getting to grips with the fact that all of our babies are different. And so, the conversation is obviously much more broad.
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing freaked me out from day one of having a child. It was like, I assumed they would follow this book of like, this happens. And you just have to rip that up, throw it away and go, no, children are chaos and everything that comes with them is chaos. So yay for that. Let's talk about you. You are a sleep consultant. You are a mum. How did you get into this? I'm guessing you weren't a sleep consultant before kids. So there's a story there.
I wasn't. I do think that's quite rare. Although I say that. I think you get it from nannies, because maybe a nanny who's not got children then moves into doing sleep consultancy. But yes, I've got them. I have got a really, really classic story that a lot of people have, which was I had a baby and I really struggled with sleep. But I think actually more than anything, I think the most important thing was I was so confused by what was online. Because it was like ridiculously conflicting. My natural instincts were not aligned with things like crying out, just leaving him. It just felt incredibly unnatural. And for the first 6 months, cried a lot, like just in general. There was like some discomfort stuff, and so the idea of just like putting him down and then leaving him to cry for longer, like that for me just didn't feel right. But that's what it's saying online. So it became like very fascinated by it. Yeah. And then, sort of came through a little bit out the other side of very, very difficult sleep. And then it was actually just before we were going into lockdown. So I'd gone back to work. At that point, I was working in property development. I want to be clear. I am not a property developer. I was an actor. Back in the day, I was an actor, moved away from acting, didn't know what I was going to do, became worked in property development. And then after I had my child, I went back and immediately was like, this is a really strange move for me. Like, I don't know what I'm doing here. And because of that, I got made redundant just before lockdown hit. And then I was like, do you know what? I'm going to use this time. So like, what do I actually want to do? And one of the, like, literally, I think it was like within the first couple of days of being in lockdown, it came to me. I was absolutely fascinated by his sleep. And I spoke to a couple of my girlfriends. Like, I've got two very, very close NCT girlfriends. And I spoke to them and I did loads of research and I came across the holistic sleep coaching course, which is run by Lindsay Hookway, which is a whole world different to lots of other sleep courses, which is more on the sleep training side. So this is very evidence-based, very alongside normal infant sleep, alongside the biological norms, understanding of all of these things, leaning on the side of being responsive, attachment, all of these sort of like different factors. But it was like it was a solid commitment. And it was like, I'm going to set up my own business. Like, we've got a kid. Like, what are we doing? My husband runs a pub. We're in lockdown. But we just, jumped in, and the rest is history. And it was the right thing. Like, all of the right things happened, if that makes sense.
So does that mean that baby number 2 then it was a lot easier to tackle, or was it just different?
Different.
Knowledge, yeah.
The biggest difference, and I truly believe that this is the biggest difference. I knew what was normal. I knew what to expect. I had a really deep understanding of the elements that were in my control, but also the elements that are out of your control. Because I think that's, I'm a really strong believer that one of the biggest game changers is actually, it's a bitter pill, but understanding that you're not wholly in control of everything. Because I think when you feel like you are, or that you should be, firstly, you can fail more frequently.
Then that's failure is real, isn't it? It's horrible. Yeah.
Big time. But also, you are trying to be in control of something that you are not wholly in control of. Yeah. And sometimes, look, there are mellow babies. There are babies that fit into the averages, fit into the online charts, fit into the, if you do X, Y, Z, it will equal ABC, like whatever. Fantastic, brilliant. But actually, many don't. And actually, once you have an understanding that, development, separation anxiety, a child's temperament, teething, illness, all these factors that are out of our control that are going to make a journey look more like this than like this, immediately it's less stressful. And I would say, like, on paper, while we didn't have such an intense first 6 months in the same way, overall, my second is worse sleeper. I mean, he isn't now. He sleeps through and stuff, but he needs less sleep. My eldest, once we got through that rocky period, happened to actually be very high sleep needs. Slept a lot of total hours,
right?
Which is just a gift that you can't create. But my youngest wasn't like that, and needed a lot more support. He's much more higher energy, much more sensory seeking. Needs a lot of input to be regulated and ready for sleep. Like, there's so many different factors that go into his sleep, but. I wasn't like, oh, what am I doing wrong? I'm failing. And like, I wasn't spending contact naps thinking it was wrong. I was just like, oh my God, this is so nice.
Yeah.
And I really think that, the tiredness and stress from infant sleep comes from two places.
Yeah.
Literally dealing with the sleep, 100%. Waking up, it's hard. I'm not saying it's easy. But also the overanalysis, the beating yourself up, the I'm a failure, the unrealistic expectations. It should look like this when actually it's so normal to not look like that. And that once you actually can alleviate that side, even a little bit, you might not be sleeping more, but a lot of the time you do feel better and you do feel less tired.
Yeah.
So that for me was a big change.
Yeah. 100%. And it's like a rolling ball, isn't it? Like, the more tired and the more stressed you are, then it comes across to the baby, and then you're just you're still trying to learn what the personality is this small mammal that you've created, and suddenly there's all these extra factors and other people coming in. You mentioned normal, and I know that's a tricky one, but what is a normal for, say, a newborn? What would you say, is a normal sleep requirement, a sleep pattern for a newborn? I hate the word normal because we're all over the place, but
a complete variability.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, the spectrum of what could be normal. Like, some newborns are like taking like loads of tiny little cat naps. Some of them are like sleeping like long swathes of time and you're having to wake them up for feeds. Some you can put them down. Some you cannot put them down. Like, you can't put them down. Full stop. They're not going to sleep. You're going to have to either take shifts with your partner overnight, or you're going to have to work on safe chest sleeping, safe bed sharing, because you can't put them down at first. Now, sometimes that type of thing can be indicative of discomfort, okay? But sometimes it is not. Sometimes it is literally, we are biologically carrying mammals. Whether society likes that or not, whether or not we are catered to it, whatever, we are. And our babies couldn't give a shit what the book says, okay? And so it is a very normal thing for a baby to want to be held all of the time, to want to feed very frequently. That is in their biology. That is, it can feel really, really overwhelming though. You know, so I'm not saying that even just knowing it's normal suddenly makes it very, very easy, but it definitely makes it easier than you thinking like, because we're sold no bigger lie than in the films. People have babies, they come home and they're like, put them down in their car and they just go about their lives. And it's like, oh God. So many babies. I mean, both of mine, I couldn't put them down. Like, and my husband slept in shifts at the beginning, but both of them holding the baby overnight. And then with my second, second half of the night, we just let into bed sharing for the second half of the night for the first 16 months. Like, he predominantly slept in his own sleep space, but the early hours was just like game over sort of thing.
Yeah.
So saying what's normal is borderline impossible. What I would say is, follow your instincts in the sense that if something does feel like amiss to you, even if it does end up being normal, just ask someone. That is absolutely, that's absolutely fine. If they seem like they are in discomfort, if every time you place them down on their back, it's like they are in discomfort, that's different to sort of like, help, where are you? I'm too vulnerable to be put down.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I would just lean into that. I think what is it? Some people say like 9 months in, 9 months on, 9 months next to, or something. Now, I'm not saying that that's for everyone. Obviously, not everyone is a bed sharing family. And like I say, we were not full-time bed sharing families. So even though I'm a big advocate for it, I'm not saying it's for everyone. But it is about understanding a child's biology, and that some children find it much more difficult to be separated than others.
Yeah. Yeah, I just remember though the fear. Like my second would only kind of fall asleep on me, so I would be there all night because I was like, "This is dangerous sleep. I shouldn't be doing it. I've been told by NCT and by this and by that. I shouldn't be." So I'd be propped up, trying to like stay awake, pricking myself with a comb to make sure I don't nod off, terrified I'm gonna drop him or something's gonna. But it was just what he needed, and he slept so deeply like that. And then it's just giving that permission for someone to say, look, there's other ways. It's not about just kind of get them down and let them cry. I don't know what kind of eventually made me kind of go with it. I think it was just desperate need for sleep and realizing that we could both sleep like this rather than kind of fighting it out every 2 minutes. But yeah, there's a lot of fear and a lot of anxiety. And my eldest slept loads, too much. Well, too much according to various midwives and people that came to visit. And they were like, you can't let him have a 4 hour nap. You need to get him up. You need to feed him. And I was like, well, shouldn't wake a sleeping baby. If he's sleeping, he obviously needs it. It's really hard to kind of get the chatter out of your brain and tune into instincts and what you feel, and knowing what's right. I mean, what do you do when you get a parent that comes to you and they feel like they've just tried everything? Like they're at the end of the tether, they've tried everything and nothing is working. How do you even begin to start helping them?
That's such a good question.
I want magic solution. That's it. Bing.
I think what's really important to note is, so the way in which I work. So if we think about sort of like my practice versus something like more traditional sleep training.
Yeah.
So more traditional sleep training, obviously this is a generalization, but it is more of a like generic set of rules. So it will be like a set of like wake windows or like awake periods during the day that you have to follow, like a routine based on age, and then some kind of technique that is to get a child to fall asleep on their own at bedtime. Like the whole basis of sleep training is that a child has to fall asleep in their sleep space, whether it be full cry out or fervor, which is like checking back in, pick up and like some kind of something doing that. Okay. And so it's very streamlined in assuming that if a child falls asleep on their own, they will sleep better, and that's the end of the story. My support is much more sort of like complex than that. So first and foremost, a child falling asleep totally independently, just so everyone knows this, is not paramount. It is totally temperament based. There are some children that will not tolerate it. Okay. And you're not weak for not wanting to sleep train if you don't want to. If you do want to, that is also totally, absolutely fine. But if you don't want to, you're not weak, you're not making a mistake, you're not making a rod for your own back. None of those things are true. And a child being supported to sleep is part of a relationship. Like, they're tiny, vulnerable humans. You are their safety. I promise you, I've worked with enough families where the baby is supported to sleep in some capacity and they can go on to sleep well. It is not paramount, just so everyone knows. When I work with the family, I have them fill out like a very detailed sleep questionnaire. So I've got literally information about everything: temperament, day routine, the birth, like medical history, like family dynamic, like actually, everything is connected when it comes to sleep. And so we look at it's a complex bespoke picture that we look at. So it's quite difficult to say, like, what would I do with someone who thinks they've tried it all? The very first thing I would do probably would be to hold them up a little bit and give them like a hell of a lot of reassurance, because I think a lot of the time parents need to know that they're not mucking it up, because a lot of the sleep industry, there's a lot of marketing, and a lot of the marketing is blaming you. Yeah. And I actually think, for me, it's not even like the fact that sleep training isn't my practice is actually irrelevant. I understand why it happens. That's absolutely fine. What I don't like is mean marketing, being like, if you don't do it, you've mucked it up, or you're failing, or you're this. And it's that, and that narrative is, you're damaging your baby. You're not. I want, like, so sorry, I know I'm going a bit all over the shop, but I want to say a few of the things that I think are really important for people to know. So, like, for example, sleep fragmentation, so waking up between sleep cycles and needing support to go back to sleep, is not the same as sleep deprivation. Okay. So when people are like, oh, if you don't sleep train, you're going to affect their development and stuff like that. A child rousing between sleep cycles is biology. Okay, they need a little bit of support to go back to sleep. Unless they're awake for prolonged periods of time consistently, and they're clearly exhausted, there's something wrong. Okay, which obviously, if that is the case, we look at that. But regularly aroused for a quick reset, or they've not lost any sleep. So that type of marketing as well, where, like, you're going to be damaging the child. For me, that causes
horrible.
So many parents that I speak to extreme levels of stress. And so actually the first thing to do is to unpick the narratives they may have in their head about what's going on.
Yeah.
Sometimes families who come to me, their sleep, I want to be clear, I'm not saying it's easy, but sometimes their sleep isn't as bad as they think it is, in terms of aligning it with what might be normal. There's a huge narrative around 6-month-olds all sleeping through the night, and that by 6 months they don't need any
magic time. You put them in their own room into a cot and say goodbye, and that's it. They're doing it 6 months. Yeah.
And so I think, for a lot of families, like, even just being told, like, sometimes I'll speak to a family and I'll be like, just so you know, like, it's very expected to still have night wakes and night feeds at 6 months, and they will literally be like, oh! And it's like, they really are, like, they are properly surprised by it. So yeah, without there being any other details, that's where I would start.
Yeah, it's like a deep dive. Now, sleep training is interesting, but what I was wondering about is the importance or not of routine. So not so much a sleep train, but having some kind of routine. I mean, we're a classic family of self-employed. We're all over the place. I've always found it hard to stick to any form of routine. And I justify that to myself by saying, well, hey, if there's a break in that routine, it's a nightmare and suddenly your child won't sleep, And I used to have NCT friends that would go, well, I can meet you between 9:15 and 9:45, and then I've got to get home to do this and this and this. Otherwise, the day is a disaster. And I was like, well, how important is that routine, or is it important to have a bit of flex, or is it again down to the child? Go.
For me,
That's not sleep training though, is it? It's slightly
no. Having routine. No, for me, when I talk about sleep training, I'm talking about some kind of unresponsive technique, like cry out.
Yeah.
But like having a routine is no bad thing, but the caveat. So first and foremost, there is no right or wrong. Generally speaking, if you ever hear information where it speaks sort of like in absolutes, like, for example, if someone said, like, you have to have a routine, or you mucked it up, I would want you to be, like, very comfortable in disregarding that person's information, because they are not understanding the individual. And it's not just the individual child, it's also the individual parent. Okay, so there's two people involved in whether or not you have a routine. So when it comes to the child, so we all have different personalities, different temperaments. So temperament slightly different to personality. It's like our genetic blueprint. Yeah, when we come out born. And regularity is one of the 9 temperament traits. So literally how regular one is naturally. So when you hear about, like, newborns that are, like, already on a routine, Like, I'm not saying that didn't come partly from the parent, but you can't do that unless that baby is highly regular. Like, no, with the best will in the world, you can't. Okay. When people are like, oh no, but I worked really hard, I'm like, no, you can't. If you have got an irregular child, especially in the newborn days. But yeah, so some children are naturally very regular. They fall into patterns very, very quickly. And it's not just with sleep, that they will sleep at the same time, they'll probably poo at the same time, feed at the same time. They're like clockwork. And those children will also thrive on having that regularity. As well as it being quite natural to them, they will thrive by that being lent into. Yeah. Then on the other end of the spectrum, you've got highly irregular children who, like, really, with the best will in the world, you're never going to have them do exactly the same thing every day. Like, even if you really are that type of parent who's trying, and they are like, no, thank you, ma'am. And then obviously you've got everything in between. And obviously, naturally, like, most of us fall like somewhere in the middle of the spectrum. But so you've got firstly your child and how regular they are. And then also as an adult, for some, it really like would be a nightmare to try and stick to a routine, whether it be because of their work, because of their job, or just their personal temperament. They are very sort of like devil may care, free flow. And that's how they want to be. On the flip side, you've got parents that before having children were extremely in control of everything. And then you have a child and it really throws you off. And I actually think that type of adult struggles more in the first instance with the transition into parenthood in general, because you
have to throw away that time clock. You cannot stick to that schedule at all.
We've just lost control.
Yeah.
And you can try, and again, when we fight to have control of something we're not wholly in control of, we're actually far more stressed. You know, I myself, I've spoken about it on social media before. Like, I have fairly high levels of perfectionism in certain areas of life. I've had to work on that because that's not aligned with being a parent. Do you know what I mean? Things can't be perfect. But so when it comes to the routine side of things, I would say in the first few months, please forget about it. Please just go with the flow. Do you know what I mean? Because once you are sort of like, you might find yourself like in a bit more of a routine where you do sort of like structure some things around it. But in the beginning, let's roll with it. Do you know what I mean? If you find like the only things I would think about in the very beginning, they don't have their body clock when they're born. So day and night are one and the same. So it's very normal to get like long stretches during the day and then to have like full, when I say full awake periods, it's not like they're extremely long in the newborn period, but like probably, you know, it's all the same.
Yeah.
If you do find you're starting to get into a pattern with free flow of really loads of sleep during the day and really much more wakeful at night, then wake them up a few times during the day. Do you know what I mean? Get them up. That's not me actually commenting on you, because he was probably just really high sleep needs. But if you do find that basically if you're getting a bit of reverse cycling, you might want to sort of like set in some like very simple parameters, but that doesn't need to be routine.
Mm-hmm.
For me, there is no right time to start implementing a routine. But what I will say is this: the fewer the naps, the easier to see predictability. When you're still on like 4 or 5 naps a day, forget about well, for me, I personally, if you want to, you go for gold if it makes you happy. But for me, even as someone who does like order, it's too many, like it's Minority Report, like you're trying to like little piece everything together. You know, for many, not all, for many, when you get sort of like around 6 months and they're on sort of 3 naps, some are even moving to 2 at that point, but it's it's early for some to be moving to 2. You start to see like a morning, a middle, an afternoon. And then, you know, once you're on 2 naps, sort of average 7 to 9 months, you can see a little bit later, can see a little bit earlier. You know, immediately, the less things that are going to affect other things, it's easier to find that predictability start to come out. The grounding for any routine, if you want to be involved in trying to orchestrate something, is the morning wake. That's your grounding point. If you've got like, oh, he might wake at 6 or he might wake at 9, then you're going to have a different day. So having a cutoff that maybe I will never tell people to have like a horrible cutoff. And you can't prevent a child waking earlier than the cutoff. But by having a cutoff, you stop the spread being so vast.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was a really long answer, but maybe didn't even answer it. This is the problem. I knew when we started, I was like, this. It's got so much to say.
On and on and on. All right. Well, let's take that newborn and take them into sort of toddlerdom. We're moving a bit further down. You get you've got into your sleep, you may be on one nap a day, they're sleeping through the night, and then suddenly, wham, they're awake in the middle of the night, and you Google it and it's 3 a.m. and it goes sleep regression. You're like, great. But then you Google every type of like month and stage and it says sleep regression with this month. And I was like, is it a thing? Is it a thing to just sweep everything under the carpet and go, it's a sleep regression, just deal with it, or are there sleep regressions? Are there periods of developmental sort of change where their brains are sort of just firing away that they will just wake up for no apparent reason and throw you that curveball when you've just got into a night's sleep?
Yeah. So yeah. So yes and no. Yes is the answer. So I don't sort of like subscribe to like sleep regressions, but then I also think like maybe it's semantics. Like we're not regressing, we're moving forward, which is true. But I do think sometimes like the language we use does actually sort of like affect how we feel about things.
Never thought about that. Yeah.
So, but we are never, because regressing does imply like the loss of a skill. So it might be like, just as an example, a child that was actually falling asleep alone or with like quite low level support that suddenly now needs much more support to fall asleep. Okay. That might feel like you are moving backwards. Okay. But actually, understanding that you're not is really important in terms of how you deal with it. If you feel like you're moving backwards, you're much more frightened, I suppose, for want of a better word, to meet that heightened need, because you don't want to pull them backwards either. You don't want to get back there. When you understand that this is a heightened need on a journey that might look like this, where the need's a little bit high, a little bit lower, a little bit high, a little bit lower, you can feel much more comfortable meeting that need. And the fact that it's normal for their needs to fluctuate. And sometimes when we think about sleep regressions, heightened development, separation anxiety, generally the big players, sometimes if you're lucky, you'll also get like a tooth and a cold, like thrown in for good measure, just to like really elongate it so it doesn't feel like a phase anymore. It feels like your whole life. But also there are age brackets that people speak about, and for sure I see certain age brackets like time and time again, but development is much more fluid than that. So that's kind of why you could probably, I haven't actually done this, but you could probably Google any age and find that someone has written about a progression, because it is just much more like and sometimes you get a little bit of a roller coaster. I find for some, like the 8 to 12 month bracket, there's such a lot of physical change and development. Like for many children, well, obviously everyone does things at different times. For some children, they literally go from like crawling to standing to cruising to walking, just in that one bracket, all of those changes. On top of that, they've got some other cognitive stuff. Maybe babbling is increasing. You get a lot of separation anxiety in that age bracket. You will get at least one nap transition, probably. You will get a couple of teeth. And if you're really lucky, you'll get hand, foot, and mouth.
Oh, that's a lovely, lovely treat. Yeah.
So like you could like one could. I don't want to like, this is not like to alarm anyone. Like, so please don't freak out about things that you haven't experienced yet, because really every child is so different. There are some big sleep regressions that some people like I didn't experience it. Do you know what I mean? But the fact is, you can sometimes, and I think when you do have an understanding of what's going on, a lot of the time you can see it. Like if sleep is playing silly buggers, I always say the first thing for you to do, what's happening during the day? Is it clear that they are like working hard on a new skill? Can you suddenly literally never put them down? Like, is it separation anxiety? I always think it's like akin to them trying to like claw back inside sort of thing. So sometimes it's like very clear, and then you could be like, okay, I can see there's a lot going on. This is incredibly hard, but I'm not gonna try and do anything right now. Like in terms of making the decision, like, should I make a change? Should I not make a change? If there's clearly something going on, just hold fire and just watch momentarily and just see before like dropping a nap or unless there's other clear signs. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. Do you find that most of your clients are newborn, or is there a particular point at which people suddenly go, oh, yeah, you've got a 2.5-year-old, you get loads of 2.5-year-old clients, or there's a certain developmental leaps that you suddenly get people going, we were fine throughout the newborn phase and now we're having a disaster?
Yeah. I mean, I get almost no newborns.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because like, what are you going to do? I'm just going to tell you you're doing great.
That was a bit of a shock for me. I would have paid like literally at 3 in the morning, having had no sleep since we came out of hospital. I was throwing money at Amazon to buy any kind of cot that would make my baby sleep
Yeah,
better.
I did. To be fair, I did do that first time round. Like the middle of the night spending was no
Yeah,
joke.
yeah. I can't do this anymore. I need to sleep. If this is a £500 snooze, give me the pod. I will buy it.
I think a lot of people, not all given, but a lot of people I work with do follow me on Instagram. So I think, like in the newborn days, they've got a gauge.
Yeah.
Like we're not meant to be able to put them down.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. I would say the most common age bracket. So I do work with, like, I will work with a newborn family, but I work alongside normal infant sleep. So there has to be, like, and I'll have a conversation beforehand about, like, I hope you understand that we're not expecting your child to sleep through and things like that. Like, that's not an expectation for me. 8 to 10 months, toddlers, love working with toddlers. I think working with toddlers is potentially my favorite because you can be so much more. There's so many different layers to it when you've got like communication. You can be so much more inventive and fun with different ways to connect and meet certain needs. And I find that there is a really big shift in toddlerhood where what they needed as a baby is actually now different. And so quite a common sort of scenario is a family who are pushing on with what they were doing when they were a baby. Because it was working, and they're like, why is it not working now? And it's like, we just need to shift it up because the child has really changed, and finding what that new normal is really fun, I think.
It's really, really interesting. My 2-year-old used to be, up until fairly recently, put him in the cot, say night night, off he'd go. And now I have to sit there and hold his hand. I have to be present till he falls asleep because his awareness now is of me and his attachment is there, and that's just what he needs. So, I'm just there. I've made myself comfortable. I'm in for however long it takes because that's what he
really common, by the way. I think it's a real surprise for some families whose baby was falling asleep on their own. My eldest fell asleep on his own for not at the very beginning, but like for a solid chunk of time, and then it just stopped. And it's really normal. And I'm like a really strong believer that there is no. I won't tell a family or a person what they should want, what they should like, but I will say out loud that staying with a toddler, a preschooler, a school-aged child, for them to fall asleep and have a quiet, calm, connecting moment with a really young person, that there's nothing wrong with that. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I just never want anyone to think like, but they are blah blah now. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're not gonna be like 18 doing it. We did, But I just think like my eldest is school age, and he can go to sleep on his own. I regularly stay because this is like a moment where we're just like lying down and chilling together, and we don't do that at any other time. And I just think like at some point, sooner than I'm going to want it to happen, you're going to be like, go away, right? And I'm going to be like, please love me. So yeah. So I just want anyone to, and just for you to know as well, like, don't worry about it if you are.
Yeah, no, I think second time around, I'm just like, okay, this is my last. I'm gonna grab onto these moments, even if I'm like, I'm really hungry and this is really uncomfortable and yeah, it won't last forever. And
have a snack before bedtime.
Yeah. For me or for them.
Have a snack before bedtime, seriously. You'll be more relaxed.
Yeah. So we need to give everyone, I mean, we could go on and on and on and on. And oh my goodness, check out Lucy's socials because seriously, all of the myth busting, I love it. It's just like fast, breezy, cuts through all of the nonsense. So do that because we haven't got time to go through any of that. But I want to give parents a bit of a light at the end of the tunnel because we've been delving into all of the problems of sleep. But there is a solution. It does resolve itself. You will sleep again, she says with a question mark slightly.
Sleeping, stop it. You've got 2 children, and you are sleeping.
Yeah.
There is no lie. I would love to be able to say at X time it resolves and then it's done.
Yeah.
What I will say is like our children are developing, changing human beings. So like there is never a time when you can be like, you're never going to see them in the middle of the night again. Do you know what I mean? Like, but of course, the like intensity, the variability, the amount of different, things going on it does reduce down. But and I don't want to like alarm anyone because it is not as difficult. Like I can say I have got 2 children, 6.5, nearly 7, and 2.5, and I sleep at night. But does that mean I'm never ever woken up? No. And does that mean I will never be woken up again? No. Okay. So I want to reassure that you will absolutely get more sleep, but I also want to be like live in the real world where, you know, our children, I do need us in the night sometimes. I wake up in the night sometimes, and then I'm like, I wish I was a child and someone could look after me. But you will like when you are in the thick of it, when someone says like this too shall pass, it can almost feel like a bit like annoying because it's like, oh, I can't cope with it right now. But really, like truly, madly, deeply, whatever moment you are in, it really will pass. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, she's magical. Have you found that your sleep has changed since because this is always my thing. Since having a kid, I'm a light sleeper now. I was like, what is that? You know, a sparrow could move some stone at the end of the garden. I'm like, oh, intruder, drama. I must protect my children. Yeah, my husband will sleep through an air raid. I am now an official light sleeper because that is my parent maternal thing. Do you sleep lightly? Do you sleep through? Do you think that that's affected you, or is that just some weird thing that I've got going on?
I don't think what's going on for you is weird.
Yeah.
I think I've got a bit of a weird thing, which is generally speaking, my husband is the first port of call at night now. After years, I want to be clear. I breastfed. I fed through the night. He's the first port of call. They don't generally wake up, but if they do, it's him. And I think there is something like psychological with me knowing that he's getting up that means that when it does ever happen, I rarely know it's happened, and I've slept through it, which does. I have to say, like I feel a bit like I'm saying this out loud because it makes me feel like a terrible parent. But on the nights that he's on his, so I think I mentioned, and you obviously know, he runs a pub. If one of them wakes up and he's not in the building, I wake up immediately. It's like you know if you're on or not, and I think potentially if you are on, then that's why. But yeah, but apart from that, I definitely like, you know, I go to bed earlier than I used to. I wake up earlier than I used to, but that's not my choice.
Yeah.
But yeah, no,
life
apart
has
from that,
changed.
I'm,
We always say, oh, if we'll go for a nice weekend away, you know, without the kids. And I was like, well, what would we do? Sleep.
yeah. No one will have our children for a whole weekend. Weekend away.
Oh, the dream. Well, thank you so much for coming on. We made it. We have tried and tried and tried to get this done, and we did it. And I feel like, yeah, sleep is something we could talk about forever. But do check out Lucy's socials, check out Second Star to the Right. Honestly, she'll talk you down off that ledge. I'm always firing questions at her. But thank you so much for coming to join us at Tappy Chats.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh.
It's Tappy Chat.